got a money manager here to tell you where he sees the best bargain stocks in the world right now. Emerging markets, maybe? Well, Paul Dietrich is Foxhall Capital Management's Chief Investment Officer. Paul, okay, let's get right to it. Where in the world do you like to put your money?
Well, I know everyone's excited about the U.S. stock market today, but for global value investors like we are at Foxhall Capital, I'm finding the best values in the world in Asian stock markets. I mean, you know, Asia has significantly slowed. There's no question about it over the last year, but it's still growing at 5 to 8% a year, and that's 4 to 5 times what we're doing here in the U.S., Europe, and Japan. The other thing that people need to remember is that for the last 2 years, Asian stock markets have gotten hammered. Many were down over 20%. And so they were completely oversold as their central banks were raising rates and trying to rein in growth, which they were successful in doing. Now with the global slowdown, Asian central banks, China's central banks are starting to lower rates. And when that happens, that's almost always good for the stock market. Don't fight the Fed, don't fight the central banks. And I think we're starting to see a real upturn in Asian stock markets, and you're going to want to be part of that. And there are some really oversold stocks.
Aren't they very dependent? I'm talking about the emerging markets, very dependent on what happens in China. And we never really know what's happening in China. We know that we understand they're going to be easing their monetary policy, at least that's what we think. But as China goes, doesn't the emerging markets go with them?
Yeah, I think you're right. But again, you have to look at fundamentals. And I think China is where the best values are today. I mean, you're seeing spectacular companies with great franchises, huge returns on equity.
Who do you like in particular, Paul?
In particular, I like China Mobile, probably the fastest growing wireless telecommunications company, cell phone company in the world. Low PE, high return on equity, high cash flow, big franchise. The other company I like is CNOOC. It's the biggest oil company. They're now investing in Canada. They have probably if you look at long-term trends, the greatest demand for energy and oil of any country in the world, and they've got the dominant position. And I also like a company called Television Broadcasting, which is, you have to buy over the counter here, but it is like the DirecTV of Asia. And unlike DirecTV here, that's growth is sort of plateauing, they just have enormous growth potential.
You also like, I was looking at your notes, Paul, you also like the Chinese online and tech companies. Which ones in particular?
Well, you know, I kind of like all of them. And I'm investing in all of them because I don't, like here in the U.S., you don't know which one's going to take off, but you just know that that sector is moving and it's going to continue to move.
I mentioned this earlier, do you think the Chinese government is going to start looking at easing their monetary policy, and what impact does that have?
Well, they're already starting. I mean, we've already seen them easing their currency. You haven't heard near the complaints from U.S. government officials that we've been hearing in the past, because they know that they have been slowly easing their currency, and it looks like they're starting to lower interest rates, and I think that's going to continue. And you're seeing the results in the stock market, and I think now's the time to get into the Chinese, but I think you're going to see it all over Asia.
Great stuff. Paul Dietrich, Foxhall Capital Management's Chief Investment Officer, Asian markets, and loves China. Paul, thank you so much.